Good morning, and welcome to the studio of Opening the Door to the Unknown. I'm your host, Dr. Clark Schmidt, or Magus1100. This morning I'm going to talk about research on UFOlogy. Now, what do I mean by research? Talking about sightings. Um, when I first started out in 1966, is that that's all we could do was just for the sightings or close encounters or CE1s. Okay, uh, today is that you can go on the internet and just type in UFO research, and all of a sudden you have boom, 1,000 things that come up on close encounter of CE4s, abductions, mutilations, and even getting names of where aliens come from. But like I said, back in 1966, when I started out, we didn't have the internet, and it was a long, drawn out journey uh, to try to get CE1s. And how did and how did investigators back then actually do that type of research? Going through newspaper articles, going through Popular Mechanics, again, the few UFO magazines that were out, contacting some of the research groups like April, Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, NICAP. At that time, there was no MUFON. Um, the the International Saucer Bureau. So these are the people that these are, or UFOIC. These are the people that we had to communicate with to try to get the information from, as to categorize in what states in what states were like the major flaps for that particular year. At what time of day or night were the sightings? What did the craft actually look like? If you could get a visual on that particular craft. So it was hard work, believe me. If you like playing baseball or go bowling or having a date, this subject would not be for you to begin to even encounter, because it was hard work. I mean, I gave up a lot of hours and hours of writing to people, making phone calls to people, talking to people, um, um, looking up again newspaper articles or magazines. So, like I said, you have heard me talk about diligence, dedication, devotion, and determination, the 4Ds, especially when it comes to metaphysics or esoterics or hermetics. This is UFOlogy is nothing compared to metaphysics, esoterics, or hermetics. Believe me, too much damn work. But if you got yourself into it, it was fun, because with all the people that you actually had a chance to meet, the organizations that have been around since the beginning true UFOlogy going back to well, I would have to say, some people say 40s, some people say in the early 40s, when it came to when they came what was called as Foo Fighters. These were little balls that pilots would experience seeing when they were flying. In fact, my uncle was a professional pilot, and he was in the Army Air Corps, not the Army. I mean, not the Air Force, but it still was called the Army Air Corps at that time, back in the 40s. And when he was flying, not as a fighter pilot, but he taught people. He was a trainer, you might say, and he experienced the Foo Fighters, and he used to talk about them all the time. Now, what were these Foo Fighters that pilots were seeing? What were these little balls? If you remember rightly, in chapter 1, I mentioned about like scout ships that I heard, or the terminology from Walter, and but these scout ships, instead of the ones that I saw for the first time, was about this big. Now, what did these type of scout ships or do? I mean, were they just big enough to follow the pilots and collect data from them, or did they take pictures of the different airplanes that we had in World War II? Did he take pictures of the pilots for future reference if they wanted to have abductions? We really don't know. Okay? What we do know is that the Foo Fighter or the scout ships actually did exist. In fact, even Project Blue Book back then was writing about the Foo Fighters, and so was when Fate magazine came out back in '47. It talked about Foo Fighters, and with some of the other UFO magazines talked about Foo Fighters, and so did the professional investigating committees, like again April, Nightcap, UFOIC. So then we had to, so did we have to contact the fighter? Did we contact pilots? Yes. And since my uncle was a flyer and a trainer for other pilots, is that he knew plenty, and I had a lot of discussions with them, and very interesting by what they actually had to say. And then you had to compile. Okay, again, if they were doing night flights, or if they were doing mid-morning flights, early morning flights, afternoon flights, where were they? How high were they? The pilots flying? Like how many feet? And and how long the distance? Say if you were going to go on a bombing raid, for an example, you know. Or if you were a fighter pilot, who my uncle taught, is that had to get all that information, compile all that information together, and keep an index. Again, hell of a lot of work. Like I said, today you can just go to the internet. All the work's done for you. You want to do the research, all you gotta do is look up whatever subject that is. And boom, you got it boom, right on the screen. It was people like me that did it for you, you might say. So, but again, it was interesting, but a lot of work involved. So what I decided to do after doing the research of 1966, after becoming a member, of UFOIC, I decided to go back. Now, I wasn't going to go that far back to Egypt or Mesopotamia or Greece or Rome, to where there was writings on flying ships, or looking at the pictures that were painted again of people in the foreground compared to what the artist saw for the background, a UFO, for an example. But I decided to at least go back to the 1800s, which I thought was more interesting. Now, I do not know if the UFO researcher goes back, starts out, or how far back they actually go. Okay, but like I said, I decided to go back to about the let's see here. Oh, where I got written down. To about I started around 1860, and I moved upwards. Okay, so going through all my stuff, I wrote down what I felt was interesting. So I'm going to read here. Okay. So here we go. All right. Oh, in 1860, on August the 6th, there was a sighting in Norfolk, Virginia. Now remember, like I said, is that had to do research for newspaper articles, and also again for whoever did the research before me, that put it in magazines like Fate or some type of saucer or Popular Mechanics or whatever. So the information I got here was from newspaper articles, through the archives of different cities and states. Okay, and again through Fate magazine and also other magazines. Okay, like the New Yorker, believe it or not. Okay, so anyways, so I just let you know where I got the information from when I did my research back in 1967. Okay, so anyways, we got, again, 1860 on August the 6th in Norfolk, Virginia. In 1884 in Norwood, New York. March 26, 1897. In, let's see if I can read my, Sioux City, in Sioux City, Iowa. March 28th on Omaha, Nebraska. And that was in 1897. There was a lot of there was a major flap. There was a major flap in 1897. So it wasn't just like one person was, happened to see a UFO, and it was written up on, for that particular sighting. But like I said, in 1897 there was a major flap. Okay, so I thought I'd just let you know on this. All right. Let's see, where are we? Okay, March 28th. March 28th. Again, in Omaha, Nebraska. April 1st, 1897. In Everett, Kansas, on April the 12th, 1897. In Millwood, Illinois, and on April the 12th again in 1897. In Green Ridge, Illinois, On April the 14th, 1897. Gentry, Indiana, on April the 14th again in 1897. In Cleveland, Ohio, on April the 15th, 1897. Sometimes I just can't read my writing. What do you say? I can't read the city where it was spotted, but it was in Iowa. In April, on April the 15th again, 1897, in St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm going to stop here for a moment and mention is that what the people saw. All right, there are 4 different type of UFO sightings. Now, what do I mean by 4 different type of UFO sightings? I'm not talking about like the CE1, 2, 3, or 4. Or I'm talking about what the objects actually look like themselves. And so we had like the elliptical. We had the elliptical, the cigar shape, the oval, the round, the ball, or the orb, and there's one. Let me see here. One more. Okay, yes, round sphere. Okay, I'll repeat this, and then because I just found it here and give you the percentage of actually what they what was actually spotted. So the shapes was a disc shape, and it was like 149 of the disc shapes, and that would be like 26% of what people saw. You had the round spheres, which would be about like 96, and that's 17% of what people saw. You had the oval, elliptical, 77 sightings, which was at 13% of what the people saw. The triangular was like 11, and that was about 20% of what the people saw. And then you had the cigar shape, which was 48, which was about 8.3% of what the people saw. And this was for in the early. This was going back. Where do I have it? To 1933. So I went from 1860 to actually 1933. Okay. See, I kind of always have my pieces of paper here, so it kind of gives me my recollection of things. You know, sometimes getting at my age, you just don't remember a lot of things, and you have to have a lot of help by having things written down that you can look at. Okay, and it happens to all of us. Don't worry about it. So where was I? Cleveland, St. Louis. Okay. On April the 15th, in 1897, we had in let's see here, St. Louis, Missouri. Again, April 15th. And by the way, do you notice that April 15th is usually is when we have to pay our income taxes to the IRS. So I said to a friend of mine, well, gee, there was 1, 2, 3, 4. There was 1, 2, 3, 4 sightings on April the 15th in 1890, in 1897, and I said maybe they came down to remind the people is that they had to fill out some type of tax form to pay to the government, and people always laugh at that. Anyways. April 15th, 1897, Perry Springs, Missouri. April 15th, again, 1897, Springfield, Illinois. April 16th, 1897, Down Township, Illinois. April 16th, 1897, Bernice, I think with my handwriting, Indiana. April the 17th, 1897, Williamson, Michigan. All right. April the 19th, 1897. Lumpy, again my handwriting, Kansas. April the 20th, 1897. Huma, Oklahoma. I just love some of these crazy names. And people say is that Wisconsin is bad because of the Indian names like Okachi, Oconomowoc. April 22nd, 1897, in Rockford, is that? Rosedale, I think, New York. April, okay, let's see here. Turnover. Okay, now we go to the February. Now we're going to 1904. Okay, February 28th, 1904, in San Francisco. December 22nd, 1909, Worcester, Massachusetts. July 19, 1916, Humphrey, West Virginia. 1918, in Waco, Texas, and again that was on the 21st, 1918. 1923, Indiana, can't read my writing. November 28th, Milton, North Dakota. Okay, May 1932. They didn't give, when I did the research on that, they didn't give the day. But it was in May of 1932. It's 32 in Druckham, I think it's Druckham, New York. And in 1933, again in Oakland, California. Okay. So after I started to compile the information that you just received for the research that I've done, I said, gee, Carmine, do I still want to continue doing this? Like I said, a lot of damn work. Lots and lots and lots of damn work. But like I said, if a person has diligence, devotion, dedication, and determination, and they like they like being this type of a researcher, which I did, or I would never have become a member of this organization from Orlando. I would have just said, as hell with it. I'm just going to just continue working with the metaphysical. It's a lot hell, it's a lot easier. But challenges. And I do love a challenge. I really do love a challenge. Okay. What was it? Just had see, once in a while you just kind of you lose it. Where do I want to go? That's what I want. Where do I want to go? Okay. Um, so, anyways, um, here again. Oh, geez. If I want to go, just give me a minute. Okay, I think that I will do this. Um, I'm not going to keep these videos or as long as I did on with book one. Okay, I'm going to try to keep these chapters a little bit more, how should I say, a little bit more on the easy side. Okay, especially for the length of time. All right. So I'm going to end. I'm going to end this chapter and continue on to chapter and continue on to chapter 3 here. Um, I will be talking about in chapter 3 a little bit on Roswell, which I said that I wouldn't do because I feel it's a dead. It's like Roswell is a dead cell because too many things have been written about it throughout the years, especially people with like Stanton Friedman and Donald Schmidt and other people. But I do have, excuse me, I do have some I mean, some of the information you might not know about. Okay, so that's the reason why I might talk a little bit about just a little bit about Roswell. So I'm going to try to get. I'm going to bring up. I'm going to upload chapter 2, and I'm going to get right on to chapter 3. Okay, but just don't skip. All right, because I'm going to be talking about Roswell. Just don't skip, because all the information that I give is very good information, especially on UFOlogy. Like I said, I don't know how many people actually go back to the early to the 18 starting from 1860s to go to 1933, and then go from 33 to what I'm going to do is go to 1947 and the early 50s, and again some of the 60s and part of the 70s, and I'm not going to go to the 80s or 90s, especially on investigations and compiling. With that, I will be giving more of personal experiences that happened to me down the line. But like I said, to skip, to go to certain um, chapters, you don't get the full. It's like reading a book. Oh, okay. Is that, say for example, if you're in an English class and the teacher gives you a book to read, and you just don't go through the first couple of chapters and think that you know the ending. All right. Got to read the whole book to understand what the author was conveying with the characters and the book itself. All right. So, anyways, that's my advice. So let me get this uploaded, and so I can get on chapter 3 and get into getting into 1947. It's very interesting. All right. I will talk to you later. Bye.